Finally, after much
Wow,
waiting, Dima
so
Shine is here on the
great.
Spaniard show. It's good to have you, my friend.
Thanks for inviting me. Good to see you, first of all.
Yeah, it's been a little while. So I will have kind of introed a little bit on the introduction prior to kicking off the conversation. But Dima and I met at the Wellness Experience, the event in Cincinnati put on by Jewel and Kroger. And so I'll tell the story now. I won't say it in the intro. I'll say it now. So I'm getting there, and I was emceeing this event, and I didn't really know. I didn't know anyone. I didn't really know anything about it. And so I'm standing behind the stage, kind of getting like instructions and delivery on what's going to be what. And I see this guy walking around, and pretty fit guy, and he's like bending his wrist back and forth. And I'm like, what's this dude doing? And I'm thinking to myself, like, all right, I'm assuming he's working like part of the crew. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe this guy's just into fitness or something. And then a couple minutes later, I see him take the stage and do some absolutely unbelievable stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's why he was stretching so much. So I come to find out who Dima is and what Dima does. But that was my introduction to you out at Ohio. And then I proceeded to pick his brain for like the next 36 hours. He asked what we were going to talk about in this conversation. I said, probably all the questions I already asked you, man. So anyhow, it's great to have you here, buddy. And I'm excited to share your story.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm very excited.
So let's start with young Dima. Start with way
Yeah.
back. Your upbringing to me, it's pretty fascinating the way the trajectory of your life. So let's kind of start way back then, and then we'll work up to present day what you're doing.
Okay, perfect. So I was born in Russia, small town called Kubinka, and there was nothing around. And I figured out the only sport that we had pretty much it's acrobatics, sport acrobatics. And I started sport acrobatics at 11. There was a like the whole story how I started because I came to try karate. I did a little bit of karate. I played a little bit of music, but other than that, there was nothing really. And I went to try to do acrobatics, but my school was right at the same time that the training were. So I was like, okay, there's no way I can train. And then there was a pool, so I was like, okay, maybe I'll just go swim. And a couple times I went to the pool, and every time it was closed or there was no water, the water was too cold. And then one time I went to the pool, and I was dressing room changing and just getting ready to go to the pool, and I see the big guy coming in with a kid, and the guy is from Georgia, so you can feel the energy. He was like pretty angry. I know. It's just the way he looked. And then the guy came and he looked at me and he's like, he asked his son, is this guy? Is it him? And I got scared because I was like, I had no idea what's going on. I thought somebody beat up the little guy, and now they're looking for that guy. And like I was like, okay, what's going on? I didn't touch that guy, but I never seen this little kid in my life. So I was like, no, of course he's gonna say no, and that's it. But the little kid stands there and he's like, yeah, that's him. I was like, what me? I didn't do anything. So the big dude, he came to me. He's like, okay, you want to do acro sport? And I had no idea what acro sport means. And I was like, yeah, of course. So he's like, okay, come, I'll make a champion out of you. So that's how my sport started.
Well, can
That's
you
how my
let
11, yeah.
let me interject here a little bit because I didn't. If you say acro sport, I think I can surmise what it is, but I think most of us listening probably don't have a clear idea of what acro sport is. So
So basically, it's a part of gymnastics, but in gymnastics, you work with equipment. In acro sport, you work with people. So there's like two, three, four people working together. We build pyramids. I stand on the hands of two big guys, and they throw me up in the air. I do backflips, turn around, and then they catch me. So basically, it's yeah, acrobatics. Usually, what you do is what you see in circus.
and back where and when you were growing up in Russia at this time, was that like a common thing? Was it in schools? Was it in communities?
It wasn't a really common thing because it wasn't. The thing is that my coach, he used to live in Georgia, and he used to have a gym in Georgia and a factory, and make millions of money. So uh, when the war started there and all the problems, blah blah blah, a long time ago, he moved to my little town. So it was just by accident. He moved as a refugee and started to teach at the regular school gym. I mean, our first gym was like a little small room. There's a huge gym, and there was a little small room up on the second floor, and that's actually where we started. The ceiling was like 2.5 meters high, so you
Uh,
couldn't even feel much.
and what drew this little kid to you? Like,
Someone from my city that knew my parents and me, they saw that I have a lot of energy, and I guess the coach was looking for some guy with a lot of energy, and they just mentioned it once. And then I know how they actually got to the pool to see me. I know they were like stalking me or something.
it's crazy. It's crazy, man, how like to
Crazy,
this
right?
day you don't know fully, and it changed your life completely.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember, like, imagine 11-year-old guy when somebody comes and tells you, okay, I'm going to make a champion out of you. And of course I came out of the pool, and I saw my father when he was picking me up, and I was like, wow, can you imagine somebody told me I'm going to be champion? I was like jumping up and down.
It's
I
really
was
awesome.
11 and I won world championship at 15.
So what was that? Okay, so whenever he came, and I do want to spend some time on your upbringing because obviously it shaped where you're at now. But from 11 to 15, I mean, after that day, more or less, there's more to it. But after that day, were you boom? Were you just in it? Was that your direction? Was that where your time and energy went to acro sport?
Pretty much, yes. When I started acrosport, the regular training was at like 3-4 p.m. But my school was from 1:45 p.m. until 6 p.m., so I couldn't do regular training. So his wife, um, Larissa Borisovna, she would come at 10 a.m. every morning and train just with me. I had a best friend with me for first year, but then he stopped going it, so I just continued.
And
And we
after
would
you
train every day, 6 days a week.
and after you won the world championships, we'll get into some of your exposure on television. Was it around that time that you were on TV in Russia, or did that come later?
No, it came later. That was when I already was in sport. So first in circus. In sport, it's not as popular yet. It's getting there, but I mean, now they started to show it in TV, but before it wasn't. So yeah, there's just my recordings. But
And then after winning the world championships, where did you go?
okay, after the worlds, we were training, but I remember my next training, like we came to the gym, the first training after the world, and we were getting for the trick to do, like we create like a pyramid, and they throw me and I do triple backflip and then land on the hands. And I remember standing there and I was like thinking, it's interesting. Like yesterday I was like the best in the world, and now you start all over again. And I
Mm.
wasn't really. I kind of like lost motivation to do it again, because I like always to get something new, to achieve something, to try things, to create things, to do something. But like, okay, you can win it. Our sport is not Olympic sport, so the highest thing we have, it's called World Games. It also goes once every 4 years, and that's what we won in Japan in 2001. But then after that, you cannot get better than that. You
Mm.
can uh, do it second time or third time or fifth time. Like my the sons of the coach, it's like it is my family, like my brothers. We grew up together. He is 11-time world champion.
Wow.
Crazy, exactly, like insane. But for me, like, I like to do new stuff. I don't like to just stay on one thing. I like to continue to see what's out there. So when we won that, I was like, I started to lose motivation, and then the next year we just finished.
And then, so you mentioned in just in conversation circus, and you said no, that was when I was in circus. So can you talk about your transition, right? So whenever you win the worlds and you lose the motivation, you think, all right, well, how far am I going to take this? What did you transition to?
It was tough. It was really tough, and that's one of the toughest, as you understand me 100%. One of the toughest moments in your life, because when you do sport, you literally think and believe and breathe and everything and dream for the sport. So I was really thinking that I was born to do this. It's not that something hobby or you do something on your part time or whatever, or it's your job or something. No, no, no. It's like you born to do exactly that. That's your purpose in life. That's how much you go into it. And then after you finish and you have free time, you actually have no idea what to do. And then when the transition started, I just started to think what I can do. And I like to travel, but there was no opportunity to travel. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll just go uh, to find a job that gonna require me to travel. So I went to university and um, I started studying hospitality and tourist and hotel management and all that stuff. But then, so I didn't train for half a year. And then the head coach of Russia Olympic team, he comes to me and he's like, "Oh, there's Cirque du Soleil coming." It was November, but there's Cirque du Soleil casting coming in January to Moscow. You wanna join? I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" So I went there. I went for the casting. I got sick before. I had temperature. I had flu. I was like hot and high and everything. So I went there and I actually passed. There was lots of people, but I actually did pass. Only me and another girl, and we got invitation to join the general training in Montreal in their headquarters. And later that year, it was January, so I remember the day. You see, like it's funny when I talk to people and I tell my story. I remember exact days, and they're like, "How do you do that?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "That's important moments in my life." So I remember that on the June 13th, I was flying to Montreal.
And how
The
old were you at this time?
There was what 2003. I was 18. I was actually 17. Getting it was June. I was getting 18 in October, so I was 17. So when I arrived to Montreal, I was living with the inside the other family because I was underage.
And that's young,
Uh,
man. Like to think that you're leaving home. You were experienced, right?
yeah,
You had won a world championship, but still you're a kid. And to think that you're leaving home, leaving Russia to fly to Canada to join Cirque du Soleil. Like, can you now, like as a grown man, can you put yourself back there? Like, were you afraid? Were you nervous? Were you excited? What was going through your
no,
mind?
actually, I remember I was like super excited. It's like the doors open up and you go. It's like a fairy tale. You have no clue where you're going, but you know it's going to be exciting. So you just go there and see what's happening. It's. I remember I was like super excited. And it was a great time. It was a great time. I mean, I was 17. I wasn't allowed to stay in a hotel and go to the bars with the girls, but you know, I had to.
And legal anyway. And
Exactly.
when you got there, because we talked, maybe we'll talk a little bit about it now, but it's pretty. I mean, I think I'm getting this from what we've conversed before, but maybe also just imposing my thoughts. But it's super. I would venture to think that it's very competitive. So when you arrive there, your skill set, like, were you on par with the other people that were there with your skills that you already had, or was there a huge learning curve in terms of getting better at performing?
The funny thing is that from when I went to audition, not only me but also the men. I was performing in the men's group in acrobatics, four guys, but out of my group, only me went to Cirque du Soleil. Only I went to audition in Cirque du Soleil. But we had a team that we were competing in sport, and they went as a whole team there, four guys. So it was funny thing when we started to train that in sport you were competing together, but now you're working together to create an act. uh, we are their flyer like after a month or two, he fell and he, I think, broke his leg or something. So he was out, and I actually took his place. So it was an interesting moment where I was on his place. I was working with his partners, where in sport we would totally compete, you know. So it's like it's an interesting how the life changes and put you in situations that you wouldn't expect to be in.
For sure.
But that was fine, and also that was 2003. Cirque du Soleil just started to do this kind of a general formation, as they call it. And I remember, like, we went to general formation. There were 64 people, 64 from the whole world. But the most interesting thing is that there were 64 world champions. Can you imagine the energy?
That's
The
insane.
performance? Can you exactly? It's just the word insane, because like everyone who is in the room is the best at his field, the best. And this is just the energies there is just like wow.
So one of the things
Bring
about
people together to work. That's just super cool.
one of the things that like really connected me to you, and it was kind of the, I know it's reciprocal because the way you approached me on stage after I asked you a question. So I asked Dima did his act on stage, and it's a handstand act, and it's this big long pole, I don't know, 10 12 feet high, and he's standing, you know, not standing, balancing himself on one hand and doing all these crazy contortions. And he comes down, I start asking him about fear, and like almost immediately you just like turned it around on me and said, well, I want to ask you about fear. And it was like at that moment I kind of realized, and I continue now, that just your energy, your approach to life, your philosophy, your mode of being, I connect with 100%. So whenever you're conveying what you feel in that room of 63 other world champions, I get it. I get it, one, because probably I've been in a room, not with 64, but with some of the best ever at what they do. And I'm like trying to be in that group, and I'm in the same room, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Like it's almost like ineffable. Like you can't even explain it,
Yeah.
but I understand it 100%, and it's freaking awesome.
Yeah, that's the energy there. You just like wow. It's just interesting to see in life these moments. You know, sometimes you work hard. There's routine in life. There's sad and good moments and everything, and then there's moments that you just cannot forget.
And then how long? So once you went up to Canada and you were part of Cirque du Soleil, did you start like performing, like working, performing immediately?
No, so I went to Cirque du Soleil and I was training for exact discipline that I did in sport. It's called banki in circus, and actually, I thought that I'm going to get the contract, but I did 3.5 months of the training, and there were no contract because everyone who were in the show they resigned another year contract, and there was no place. So I was like, okay, whatever. I mean, I got very pissed and very disappointed, and I was like super like sad and everything. But then I left, and I was like, I knew that they're gonna call me for a second time because I knew I was like, I was good. I'm good at what I do, and they need good artists. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna come next year. And then I came back home, and they called me for the next year. So I'm flying the next summer there, and that year I already did not the bankin, but I did Russian bar. Russian bar is like you see there are two people on the side standing across each other, and they're holding the bar on the shoulder, and the bar bends a little bit. So when you stand, the flyer stands in the middle. You can use the bending of the bar, and they throw you in the air. You do backflips, and they catch you. Crazy, again, crazy. So I started to train for that. I did 3.5 months again, second formation. And usually when you go in the second formation, they tell you that, okay, and they don't tell you straight, but usually it means that you're going to get the contract because, you know, they try to keep people in the company. And I told my father when I left, I was like, you know what? If I'm not going to get the contract, I'm done with circus. I don't want to do that anymore. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going there totally sure that I'm gonna get the contract, and I'm working training for 3.5 months, and everything's fine, and I'm doing great job and all that stuff. Da, 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 da. But then again, time passes by and there's no contract, and I'm like, "Ah," and I remember where I told my father, I was like, "Oh, I don't want to
Hmm.
finish the circus. I didn't even start yet." And yeah, we're doing. I had couple of the moments in my life like that. So tomorrow we have, or tonight we have the show to present what we did after those 3.5 months of training. Every act in the studio had to present their part, and it's like one big show. And I have my plane tickets, my flight tickets, my taxi coupon to pay for the taxi. I have my luggage already all packed and standing at the door. So I have like everything ready to go to fly tomorrow back to Russia. And the lady who usually gives contracts, she comes to me after the show and she's like, "Oh, I want to talk to you." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, great, let's go." So she's like, "We don't have a contract for Russian bar for you, what I was preparing for, but there's a guy in another show called Dralio and he got injured. So would you like to try to do his act?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." And she's like, "I didn't even tell you what you're gonna do yet." I'm like, "I don't care. Yeah, I can do that." And then there was a big ball. Like the act is like it wasn't difficult for an acrobat. So there's a like a big ball, probably like 5-6 feet heavy one. So you jump on the ball, you go in the middle of the stage. I did like a backflip. I did some handstands on it, and then you just roll around on stage on the ball, and there's none of things going on around you, but it's just there's the idea. So they're like, "Okay, we're gonna give you the ball. After 2 months, we're gonna do the presentation, see where you are. If you're doing great, we're gonna give you another 3 months, and then you're gonna go for the show." I'm like, "Okay." So I got the ball on Monday, and on Friday I came to them. I'm like, "Okay, I'm ready." And they're like, "Ready what?" I'm like, "I'm ready to go." So the following Friday we did presentation, and then it took me another month to like learn the makeup, to create the costume, to do all this stuff. Da, 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 and after at the end of the month, I went to the show.
Wow. And you had explained it to me, and you talked a little bit about it in this conversation extemporaneously. But can you break down for the listeners, because I asked you prior, and also I kind of want to be reminded, but I know that it'll be cool to them too. When you joined the circus, and when I say the word circus, I mean I think like Barnum and Bailey circus. We're talking about Cirque du Soleil. Can you talk about the disciplines like trapeze, handstand, the Russian bar? Like, can you break down some of the disciplines and the idea that when you join, do you pick a discipline and then focus on that discipline?
No, basically, you don't pick. When Cirque du Soleil invites you, they you have a talent. You're an acrobat, and then let's say, of course, you have your specialty talent, which is an acrobat, and they try to. Acrobat's a great thing because we can do pretty much everything. We
Okay.
can fly, we can jump, we can fall, we can balance, we can do whatever.
So basically, so
Easy.
basically, as an acrobat, you have a toolkit to do all of those
Wait,
things.
yes, and they see what they need for the shows on specific. The thing is, in as an acrobat, you still have a sport presentation on stage or discipline and all that stuff. The movement, they when you go there, they try to develop it and break the habits a little bit. So you study a lot of dance, you study a lot of acting, you study a lot of clowning. Like you study many different disciplines so you can become an artist, not just an athlete, because there's a difference, you know. And like in sport, usually before the trick, you stay there and you prepare and you concentrate, and then you do the trick. In circus, there's no time to stand there and concentrate because people see that and they don't want to see the preparation; they want to see the magic. So
Mm-hmm.
you should present it. It's like it just happens by itself.
Yeah, just like that. I roll out of bed. Boom.
Exactly, absolutely.
So
So
what are can you? I think I named three or four of them, but can you name or rename some of those disciplines or acts that are in the circus?
in
Like
general,
yeah,
they
yeah.
have yeah, they have like trapeze. They have like a like flying trapeze when people fly one to another one. They have hand balancing things that I do. They have bankin. That's exactly the acro sport that I did in sport. They have Russian bar. the thing that I explained you, the guy jump in the middle. They have also, they offered me a Russian swing. Russian swing is like two huge swings.
Mhm.
They stand across each other, and when they swing, it's like, we did as a kid. You jump from one swing to another one, and that's crazy. That's one of the craziest act ever. Like super dangerous, but super beautiful, and
Awesome, yeah.
looks
I
great.
I think I've gone to two Cirque du Soleil shows, one here in Hershey where I live at the Giant Center, and then one in Vegas. And I remember a thing where like they were almost like two boards on a pendulum or something, and one guy would like jump
Yeah.
up, and then the other guy would fly
Oh,
across to the other one.
exactly. Quality board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Like,
so awesome.
yeah, all the stuff that you were a kid, you were like just playing around. Now we
Yeah,
do it as
it's so
a job.
cool. And then is there like when you say the word circus, are you referring to Cirque du Soleil or are you referring to any form of circus that anyone would go to?
Basically, a circus in general. Cirque du Soleil is a company, one of the best company in the world, of course. But there's a lot of like smaller shows and different companies around the world. So there's circus in general. Circus is life.
Yeah, it truly is. Life's a circus. It's not life's a fight. Hey, life's a fight and life's a circus, man. We're connected.
Exactly.
So talk whenever we kicked off this phone call, you were talking about one of your recent events that you did. So Dima, and you can spell the story out if you want or you cannot, but now Dima works solo. So he's, like I am, I speak solo and I book gigs, etc. So he works solo now. So can you talk a little bit about your Cirque career and then the transition to being a solo artist? And then I want to get into some of your gigs and events that you do.
Okay, so I got the contract that temporary contract for half a year for the show called Dralion in Europe, and I went there. And like, if you come back a little bit, I did the first formation and second formation. As soon as I got to the first formation, first time in Montreal in 2003, I I was working in a group that I was competing with. So there was like 15, 16 people in the act. And I was 17. I was the smallest one, the youngest one. So no one would pay attention to me and listen to my ideas or whatever I think about it, of course. So, and I didn't like that. I was like, okay, if I want people to listen me, then there should be no one in the room.
Yeah.
It should be just me, and then people will listen to me, because otherwise, who's gonna listen, right? So I was like, okay, then I need to do solo act. And I started to think, okay, what can I do? What can I do? What talent I have? And I was like, okay, I can fly, I can jump, but that's one thing. If I jump, somebody need to throw me. But also can balance a little bit. A little bit. I was pretty bad at balancing. I was mostly like jumping and flying. So I was like, yeah, I can balance a little bit. I can develop that and create the act. So that's how I started to train. And then the first general training, I started to train during this training session. The training session at Cirque du Soleil would start usually like 9 a.m. We would start trainings, and we finish at 6 p.m. So what I did to get the time to train, I would come at 7 a.m. to the training room. I would warm up and train for 2 hours, and then I would go on a regular training from 9 to 6. And then after 6, I would come back at around 7, totally dead, just playing the music and trying to get motivation. And then you go from like 7:30 to 10 o'clock at night, just keep training. So that was my. I like to train a lot. When I get my mind to something, I just go with it, and I can, you kind of get in the zone of.
Yeah.
It's like it is meditation, that. So you just go there and you can train for hours. Uh, so when I got the contract to go to Dralion, they were in Belgium, in Antwerp. So I got there, and I continued training. I continued training my hand balancing skills. So people would come to work at around 3-4 p.m. I would come every morning at 10 a.m. to the tent. I would train the whole day until the show. I would do the show, and then I would train after the show. And there was a guy, one of the best jugglers in the whole world. I mean, one of the best circus artists in the whole world. His name is Victor Key. You can probably connect the link. I'm gonna give you the link so you can put it out there. So he was at that show and he saw me working hard and he saw me training. And he is from Ukraine, so we speak the same language. And we were sitting next to each other on the dressing room. So we started to talk a little bit more and more and more. And then he's really smart and really like a active person. He does businesses and all that stuff. He's always busy with something. So I started to learn from him. He is 15 years older than me, so I was always looking up to him and learning from him, like following him. He does business cards, so he communicate with business people and all this stuff. I was always trying to be close, to listen and to learn. And then more and more time spent together, we became friends. And then it's just at some point I figured out that he went to Ukraine, in Ukraine, in Kiev, to circus school. And I tried to get more and more information from that, because my contract was only half a year at Raleigh, and then I would be done. I mean, when my contract was getting close to an end, the Cirque, usually Cirque doesn't just offer you to choose. They give you, okay, here's a contract, here's a position, take it or leave it. But that time they offered me three different contracts, and those the ones that I was preparing for. They offered me Bankin to Kidam show. They offered me Russian bar to Alegria, and they offered me Russian swing to Varikai. All the three crazy acts, like super dangerous, super difficult. I was like, oh man, I prefer to balance in my hands. So at that time, I gladly refused the offer, and I finished. I finished with Cirque. I left the show, and I actually went to Kiev. I went to Kiev to start to circus school to study hand balancing, because I was like, okay, if I'm not going to, I'm not going to do it at home because there's too many things to do. I'm going to be distracted, and there's also no place for me in the show, so I can continue training with Victor there. So I was like, okay, I need to go to circus school. So I went to circus school, and I went there for half a year. But as soon as I got there, I realized I'm the worst one, even though I was already world champion and like very experienced and pretty good at hand balancing. I was the worst one. I was like, oh man. So I decided to stay a year longer. So I stayed there a year and a half.
Wow.
I created my act. Then I flew to Germany. Me and Victor were together, like we put it together, blah, blah. Vladimir Marin also helped me. And so in just throw the names, like in the circus school, there's Natalia Alexandrova Poznikova. There's a Poznikov family that the husband does the juggling, and the wife, she does the hand balancing. And those two people, like the husband, and Yuri Ivanovich, he is like one of the best coaches in the world for juggling. And Natalia Alexandrovna, she's one of the best coaches for handstand. So there's like the family is unbelievable, and they have a son who creates the act also. So it's like the very artistic, full-rounded family, you know.
Yeah.
So they taught me, and the thing is, what I want to tell you is that I'm very, very, very lucky. I'm very, very, very lucky with the people who I meet along the way, because my coach in sport was one of the best coach in the whole world. My coach in circus, one of the best coaches in the whole world for circus. There's like people who teach me, people who I meet on the way. Is just I get super lucky. I don't know how, but no.
But do you think, and I don't want to lose sight of that story because I want to hear you continue from there. But do you think you also
Yeah.
kind of bring that your way or create your own luck? Because
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, but you know.
it is also just luck.
I think it's both.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm thinking in my head also, it had to take guts for you to turn down the contract.
Yes, yes. It was a scary moment. It was one of the moments that I was very nervous, because, like, I was already working in the best circus in the world, like doing the great thing, blah 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 blah, the biggest circus, doing the great things, doing the act, doing everything, being on stage, and everything's great. I mean, usually how people do, they go to circus school, they train, and they go to circus, right? And I was working already one of the best circus in the world, and I was quitting circus to go to circus school. That was the
Yeah.
opposite way of doing things.
And so after the circus school, after training with the husband and wife combo, where did you go from there?
So I started to work in Europe. I did one variety show in Germany, in Leipzig Crystal Palace. But then after 1 month, I went to there's a, in circus there's festival. There's no competitions, but there's festivals, different festivals. And one of the best ones, like one of the biggest one, it's Paris festival in Paris. Is called Circus of Tomorrow, Cirque du Soleil. And then there's also Monte Carlo. Monte Carlo is for mature, older, more experienced artists, and Paris is for young generation who beginning, so something new coming up, you know. And when I finished circus school, I went straight to Paris Festival after a month, and that was my dream. When I went to circus school, I was like, that's like in sport, I was leaving to become world champion. In circus, I was leaving to go to this festival. That was my ultimate goal. And yes, and I went to circus festival, and actually I won. I won gold medal, and also I won prize of the public. And then there's some other several awards, uh, but that was it. That was like, that was a highlight. I had absolute. I was like, the feeling is just incredible.
Yeah. And then did that kind of spark your career? Did you go back to Cirque after that?
Yes, yes. So that kind of sparked my career, because like a career, because there's agents and owners of the shows and companies and booking companies, event companies, and everything. They go to the festivals around the world, especially to those ones, because they are the biggest ones. And after that, if they like the act, they're gonna offer you a job and all that stuff. So basically, that's how you. It's a great push for your career. I mean, if you do great, uh, and I did, and after that I started to get a lot of offers and everything, and I started to work. I mean, I've done four more festivals during that year, and I won pretty much all of them except one. One I got silver in Budapest, but all the rest I got gold. And I just started to work all around the world. Mostly I was living in Germany and France, but I would be traveling for events like to Australia or to Japan, to everywhere.
And this
I
was
was
as
just,
you're getting paid for your job, or this was competing?
no, this was competing. This was just special events.
Okay.
I did after that special events and different shows. So I was just based in Germany, living in Germany, but traveling all around the world to work.
And okay, so this was work. So you were getting paid to do these events.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I was going to ask how you were sustaining yourself money-wise, but
Yeah, yeah, of course. After the you do the festival to get the interest from the people, and then you get asked for shows, and
yeah.
in shows, of course.
And then did
Yeah.
you when did you end up in Vegas with Cirque then from there?
So I can tell you one funny thing, that as I told you, that I was living my dream, living that was my life goal, to go to the circus festival. So once I got there and I won, that's it. I wake up the next morning and I'm like, okay, I'm happy. I'm super happy. Everything's great. But then I'm like, okay, so now what?
It's terrible. It's like awesome, but it's terrible.
I can tell you, yes, it is terrible. You wake up and you're like, okay, you have no goal. You got it, because that's the goal you were living for. You got it. And now, okay, there's a job. I was trying to tell myself, okay, you work hard. So can you please enjoy it now? Like, take the job, do the shows, make money, travel the world, enjoy this. But me, I'm very like goal oriented. So I need to have something to go for. So I was like, I lost the spark. I was like, yeah, I mean, I work, but I don't have that something to go for, like some goal to compete for, because I still have this competition character from sport. So I felt like a couple years I was lost. I mean, I did the shows, I work around the world, but I didn't have a specific goal to move towards to. And that was actually very hard because I was like, I was sad a lot of times. I was thinking about life, okay, what to do, da, 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 da. So, I mean, what to do, I was working, but still,
Yeah.
like, where to find that inspiration, you know? And funny thing, like in 2008, I always wanted to open up the business since I was 15 because I wanted to have enough money to be free, to be independent, to do whatever I want, and uh, and I wanted to open up pizza place. I wanted to open up car service shop. I wanted to open up car wash. I want to like different things, but I had no clue of any of them what to do. And then at some point, uh, I was thinking like about my training because I love training and that's how you get in shape and you get better. And I was like, wow, what if I can create the something like that for people to train, not just do weights, but to work with your own body, to learn how to move rather than just for looks. And uh, and this in 2008 I was driving in Germany, and that's when I figured out the idea of opening up a fitness studio. And then I started to develop the concept and bring more things in it, and and then I just decided to call it alternative fitness. So for some time it was alternative fitness, and then, as you know, my stage name is Shine, and I was looking for a name, and then at some point I was like, why don't I call it Shine? Shine is a great name. It's powerful, it's bright, it's sound, and it's short. So perfect name for it, you know. So I was like, okay, I'll just call it Shine Alternative Fitness. So that was 2008, and but as I said, I was traveling the world with different events and shows, and usually staying at a place for like the most maybe 2 or 3 months, and then there is no way to build something like this. I was like, okay, what? I need a place where I can just stay, work, so I can make money to invest in the business, and have time to build it. And where can I do that? The only place in the world, basically, with the long contracts, pretty much. There are some other places, but mostly it's Cirque du Soleil. They give you 1 year contract, and for the whole year, you know that you're gonna be in this town working this job, and you're not gonna just travel. So I was like, okay, it's time to come back to the roots.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, in 2008, later at the end of 2008, they offered me a position in the new show. It was new at that time, show called OVO, but we didn't agree on some conditions and everything, so they didn't work out. And then a year later, they offering me a contract on show called Banana Spiel. The show, it's a new show on Broadway. They were putting it in New York as a resident show on Broadway, and I was like, wow, on Broadway, everything. Da-da-da. I was like, of course. So we agreed on everything, on the money and the conditions, copyrights and everything. And then in 2010, end of 2009, I went to we went to Chicago first for 2 months for the rehearsals and some previews. And then in January of 2010, we started to work on Broadway. So I was like I was living on 75th and Broadway, like super cool place, like two blocks from Central Park,
I'm laughing
15
now.
minutes from Times Square. I was like, wow.
We don't have to tell the whole story just for time's sake, but Dima told me this. I remember as you're talking, he told me this story, and that you were working for Cirque at this time, correct? This was part of Cirque.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So his like his impression of living in New York City is very different than what he would later come to realize, because he was getting like treated to the nines with Cirque du Soleil and like living the life, right? Essentially in a
Yeah, when
penthouse
you
or
yeah, when you get first time in the country, I had no idea. Chicago was my first time in the United States, first ever. So I stayed there for 2 months, and then we moved to New York. And I'm living in an apartment, two-bedroom apartment in on 75 at Broadway. I mean, like pretty cool area with everything around restaurants. Our theater was in the same building as the hotel, so you just come out, cross the street, get the Starbucks and your flip flops, and you go to the theater. I thought it's normal. I had no idea. I had nothing to compare to. So I thought it's normal to walk 2 blocks to Central Park between the shows to read a book or to listen to music and lay down on the grass. And then in the evening, occasionally you go to Times Square, you just hang out and make some pictures. That was normal.
And also his accommodations. Like his accommodations were really nice and really
Yeah.
spacious. And it's funny because he later came to realize like, oh wait, that was not reality. That was a really awesome circumstance. But that you just had no perspective or frame of reference. And when you said that, I thought it was hilarious.
No, I
And
should.
then how long did you work for? And also it's up we're about 50 probably minutes into this. If and when you have an appointment or you have to go, don't just please feel
I'm good.
free
I'm
to.
good.
Okay, good.
I'll
Because
just I'll just connect my charger to the computer if I need to, but
all
I'm fine.
right. And then how long? So that kicked off your Cirque career. How long did you work for Cirque then?
So for Cirque, I did 1 year in. So I did half a year in Dralion prior to circus school. Then I did 1 year in Banana Spiel, Chicago, New York, and then so I was working there. And then at some point, I went to Las Vegas for vacation, and I saw in April 2010, and I saw Humanity show, and I fell in love with it, and I really enjoyed it. And I was like, wow, that's the show I want to be. So I went to. Um, I came back to the show and I asked for transfer. So like we were talking about how to get to different show. Hey. And then sorry, our instructor came for ballet. We have a ballet class now, so
That's
that's
all
why.
right.
Yeah, I'm doing the interview, so I'll come back to you later. Uh, I was saying, what was I saying?
You went to humanity. You fell in love with humanity.
Ah,
Asked for the
yeah,
transfer.
yeah. And long story short, I got to Humanity to go to Las Vegas, and as soon as yeah, when I got there, that was unbelievable. I mean, I'll tell you at some point the story how I got there. Nobody wanted to see me there, but somehow I got there. You know, when you really want, you can overcome the circumstances. Yeah, but that was a pretty interesting time, and so I ended up in Las Vegas. So prior to that, the show in New York, we stayed there for a year. But one of the reasons why also, I mean, I love the Zumanji. That's the reason I wanted to move. But also another reason, the Broadway is a very difficult market. They have their own mafia inside that just it's from somebody outside is very difficult to come onto the market and take the place. So we had a lot of mean reviews, not bad because the show was actually great, but mean reviews.
Mm.
So people would think that the show bad and they won't come. So yeah, we couldn't stay on Broadway, and the producers decided, okay, now the show is going to be touring show, so we went to Toronto. But we went to Toronto for a month, but they weren't prepared to do touring shows. So they're like, okay, we're just going to close it. And then when they decided to close it, that's when I made the transition to Zumanity. So I got to Zumanity, and even though like in New York, I looked at the rental prices for the my future fitness studio, and I was like, what, 50 grand for a month? No. No.
Hmm.
And when I came to uh, Las Vegas, that's where I actually met my business partner that's actually coming in to do the ballet. And that's where we open up Shine, my fitness studio. So
And then alongside opening up Shine, were you working with? How long did you work for humanity there in Vegas?
8 years. So I arrived here at the November 4th of November, I think, of 2010, and then 1st of March, I mean 29th of 29th of February, we opened up studio, 2012. So
And
basically, year, yeah.
and so like one of the things that I want to bring to light is your lifestyle. So
Yeah.
while you were in Vegas working with humanity, you were like in Vegas, right? So you were pretty stationary.
Yeah.
but I know at least early in your career, and then also later in your career, post Cirque du Soleil, when you're working by yourself, independently, you travel. Like it's one of the reasons I felt so connected to Dima, and we've talked about this, is, when I was younger, coming out of college, I would travel and I would just be by myself, and I would go to different countries, a couple different countries, but then different areas within those countries, and it was just it was like just a cool lifestyle. You didn't really know what you were going to do, where you were going to go, who you were going to meet. Might have been like a little dangerous at times, but I was always engaged. Like I was always stimulated. I was always like, a lot of times it was in Spanish, so my mind was on overdrive. It's just a fun lifestyle. And he lived that lifestyle through performing. So just talk a little bit. It could be lonely, right? But I feel like you've done a tremendous job of making it fulfilling. So talk about that
Uh,
aspect of it, traveling.
yeah, the travel aspect is actually very interesting because the thing is about dreams, you might relate to that. I'm sure you will. The thing is about dreams is when you have a dream and you believe in something so strong, be prepared that most of the time you're going to be alone. Why? Because to get to the dream, you have to get the very long and very hard road that not many people will stay there to go through with that, and they don't have to because it's not their dream, it's your dream. So you have to learn how to be happy with by being alone on the way to your dream, because the most of the road you're gonna go alone.
That's it.
You're
Like,
the only one who believes so much in a dream to stay there. You're the only one who have motivation to go the road, and the road is long. But I mean, that's life. How they say, it's not about the end result, it's about the trip. But I mean, the trip, I cannot say the trip is easy. The trip is very hard, but that's called life. You meet people on the way, you get situations on the way, and that's, I think it definitely strengthens you up, the character and everything. So uh, there's good things and there's bad things about it, because you become very independent.
mm,
And then it's harder for you to in other areas of life. But
yeah. Where are some of the places you've traveled slash worked?
oh, pretty much the whole Europe, the Japan, Australia, uh, South America, in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and uh, I love Canada. Canada, absolutely amazing. I mean, as France and Switzerland and all that stuff, and states.
And Cincinnati, Ohio, where we met.
Ohio was beautiful. Was beautiful.
It was it, so I'll start to kind of wrap up here, but it was just so cool. So I may mention this in the introduction, as may have already on the intro, but like sometimes I feel like I meet people, not very often, once in a while. I meet people, and a lot of the thoughts I have in my head as a person, I feel like to 99.9% of people, if I say it to, they'll be like, I don't understand what you're talking about. Like this pursuit, right? Or this aspiration or this desire to just fully engage in life, and test yourself and challenge yourself, and just not many people do that. And so a lot of times I feel like when I try to explain that to people, I can't. It's like I'm speaking a different language. And when I meet certain people, Dima being like maybe the most person, this, I just feel like boom, like just connected, almost to the point where I left there being like, was Dima a real person? Right? Like, did I just conjure up in my mind this figure that was a reflection of me, but in a completely different way? Because so many things we talk about, the fear, the drive, the loneliness, like it's universal to someone who pursues something full out. And so I'm so grateful that I came across you, and like completely different paths, different sides of the world, different events or different whatever specialties, sports, etc. yet connected by so much. And I got home and I said to my wife, I'd love to visit him someday. And I mean, in
Because
Russia.
I told you, look at the studio. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the entrance. There's a bigger studio inside. But come anytime. Yeah, I'd love to see you, host your family, bring you to some shows, show you the studio, and yeah, we hang out. Definitely.
I'm gonna have to put this in my master plan. I've been talking about buying a an RV and just traveling. And out west are a lot of national parks, so I feel like we could swing past Vegas quite well. And also, I would love you and I had talked about making a trip to Russia. I would love to show my kids Russia. I would love to be exposed to where you grew up. And
Absolutely.
so what? So you perform at like corporate events. You perform at events like this festival that we had, the wellness experience. Not we had,
Yeah.
but we were at. Um, what? So I guess
So
now that's what you're doing. Yep, no
charge.
problem.
So you
Connecting
don't
this
go offline.
charger. Um, so that's what your time is made up of now: running your gym there in Vegas, Shine Alternative Fitness, performing at different events, festivals, corporate events, etc. Um, and then just kind of living life. That's your current.
So I'm actually in a very interesting spot right now. Uh, I've been with Cirque du Soleil for 8 years. I mean, I've been in Vegas for 11 years. I did the show called Celestia. I mean, I went to Canada for half a year and then I came back here. I did the Celestia show, new show in Las Vegas for a year, and then the pandemic happened. And then after a year and a half of pandemic, the show didn't reopen, didn't survive. So I had no show. I mean, I started to do now corporate events, and the one actually I might talk to you about the cave and everything. So here and there, several times a month, I do like different corporate gigs, and that's great because I have a studio. I've been working on the studio. We closed the studio for pandemic for 2.5 months, but then we reopened, and the whole time we were operating. So I didn't really feel that much of a jobless time because I was like busy pretty much every day anyway, and I was trying to stay in shape. So it was like I was pretty busy during the day. Uh, but now when the pandemic finished and the show started to reopen, most of the shows, but our show didn't reopen, I always wanted to, probably when we went for hookah. I told you about I told you about what did I tell you about? I told you so many things.
Where you're at now with post pandemic, well, kind of post pandemic.
Yeah, I told you about that. I wanted to come back to Russia because my parents are there, and the time goes by. People get older. I want to spend more time with my parents, and I want to travel with them, and I want to see. You know, one of the things when you travel and you see those so many beautiful places, and you just it's absolutely amazing, and like you see places that people usually don't see in their
Mhm.
lifetime. You want to share it with someone, and I always wanted to share it with my parents. So for me now, I would really love to travel more and to show my parents the world a little bit. So that's another one of my plans. So when the show didn't reopen here in Vegas, I was like, okay, it's maybe it's the time. Maybe it is this comfortable time that I'm supposed to come back. So now I'm planning to actually start slowly moving back to Russia, but not like moving. I'll The thing is that I got the citizenship here in States, so I can be at two places. So I plan to live like here, for example, like 6 months and there 6 months, especially because I have a studio and I keep the studio. So I'll need to come back to check on the business anyway. So yeah, now I'm here, and in December, 1st of December, I was flying to Stuttgart to Germany. I have a show there for a month and a half, and then after Germany, I'm going back to Russia. I moved half of my stuff, and I'm going to stay there. And then after that, in March, like middle of March, I'm coming back to back to States for several months to be at the studio and to work, and then I'll get back home to Russia. So I'll just be basically flying back and forth. But the thing is, now what's interesting with the time is where you always have a set goal of things that you want to do and all that stuff. Now I feel kind of I'm in a space where I'm not sure so much what's next. I have a lot of things I like to do. I have a lot of plans. I have a lot of like ideas and all that stuff, but I didn't pick anything yet.
Mm.
So it's not like you don't have anything to do. No, I have so many things to do, but I don't know what. And I decided to take maybe a, a little break for like half a year or a year, and just to travel and to try to, you know how people say, like, refresh the mind and see where it
Yeah.
goes. Because I've been like since I got to first general formation 2003. I was like, don't.
Yeah. 18 years, dude. And I actually have to start wrapping up because my son gets off his bus soon. But I
Like we
wanted to
just started.
what's that? Yeah, no, honestly, trust me, I know. We did just start, and I could like it's hard for me to bite my tongue and kind of wrap it up because I there's so many
You tell you
aspects.
about the cave.
What's that? Yeah, he did an event in Napa he was talking about, and it was just awesome. You're more than welcome to come back, buddy. We can pick up where this ends.
Let's come back next time. We'll talk about life or psychology or
Per,
relationships or,
your
you know,
per,
business.
formal invitation. I got to learn the time zone in Russia too, so I don't text you. Actually, I don't know if you're keeping the same phone or not, but I got to figure WhatsApp or something to connect with you. But I want to say this because you make me happy. Meaning, thinking of Dima Shine, thinking of your lifestyle, thinking of your history, your path in life, it brings me joy, and I love it. I know because I interacted with you, but you also seem like a happy person, right? You're living, you're doing, going with it, eating good food, traveling
There's
beautiful.
difficult times always.
What's that?
There's a lot of difficult times. I mean, generally, I'm I always thought like I'm the happiest person in the world deep inside. But sometimes, you know, there's also problems. It's not like all bright and happy. I mean, in general, yes, it's just the
That's what I
life is
mean. Yeah.
that easy. But I mean,
It's not perfect, but in general, you're a very happy person. And I'm curious because you mentioned after you won the world championships, hitting a spot the next morning where you're like, what now? And then you mentioned the second time, was it after the festival where you woke up and you
yeah,
were like,
second time.
what now? How
Second time.
have you found joy? Like, have you been able to find joy in your daily living, or do you still struggle with that lack of a goal?
No, I mean now I have a goal. Like you know, business is the best thing because like in sport you can be the best, and then that's it. I mean, you can open up the training gym and train other people, blah blah. If that's what you want to do, it's not what I wanted to do at that time. Now I'm more getting to it, but yeah, at that time that wasn't my thing. And then like in circus, also you can create an act and work in the show, and then there's good shows, there's bad shows, there's bigger shows, smaller shows. I mean, you can figure out the best, the biggest shows, and be there as a featured act and blah blah. But that's also like a ceiling. You cannot
Yep.
get, I mean, you can create and do different act, but it's just going to be different act. It's not going to be something totally different. Where in business I feel like businesses, there's no ceiling, there's just the sky, you know. And there's never ending inspiration of goals. Like, I mean, the main goal is to survive.
Yeah.
Then we go from there. And that's why I like business. But talking about this, when you lack of goals and stuff, in sport I was very competitive. I had very competitive character, I mean, still now. But it started to change in a way that I started to look at life a little differently, saying that the majority of life is not up and downs. I mean, there's up and downs, but there's several, like I can highlight in my life, you know. But the majority of life, the most part of life, is a routine that takes your 99% of life. So if your life is a routine, and not just your everyone, then if you find a way how to be happy during your routine, then you're going to be happy in life.
It's just so
No,
like,
you not only have to be happy when it's up and down, like when there's a highlights in life, because it's just like a shot of adrenaline. You're like, woo,
yeah.
it's like falling in love. People like, okay, I'm so miserable, but if I fall in love, I'm gonna be happy. That's your shot of adrenaline, but that's gonna go away at some
Yeah.
point. So if you find a way how to be happy in that routine life, in the regular everyday life, and that's it, then you're just gonna be
So it.
happy.
Well, man, I'm gonna wrap it up for part one there. You
Let's do
you
it. Yeah,
s-
part one. I like that.
you nailed it. I mean that I've been trying to express that sentiment to people because I don't feel a need like people. My brothers, two of my brothers did an Ironman, and people say, "Well, you got to do an Ironman now, right?" And it's like, no, I'm pretty content. Like maybe if I want to do an Ironman, I'll do an Ironman. But I
Yeah.
have found joy in the minutia, in the day to day, in the routine of living. And of course, there are those up and downs, but I 100% agree and love what you said. And I think that's a great way to share the freaking magic of Dima Shine with my listeners because it's been awesome. Dima.shine on Instagram.
Uh, I think so.
Yeah, I think it's if you just type in Dima Shine, Dima,
That's
um,
fine.
yeah, Dima.shine, I'm nearly certain it is. And then anything else you Shine Alternative Fitness in Vegas.
Yeah, challengerfitness.com. You can see the website. And guys, if you're in Vegas, come. We teach group classes mostly, but we also can do any private classes if you want. Parties, bachelor parties, birthday parties, whatever you
And also YouTube Dima Shine. Watch his act. It's pretty freaking incredible.
want.
All right, brother. I've enjoyed it, man. Thanks for being here.
Charlie, thanks for inviting. Guys, thank you so much for watching. And yeah, let's see the second one sometime.
Sounds good, buddy. See you.